How's it going, blokes? This is Adam Mars 98. I'm gonna read it like this.
Nope, just kidding. Now, if you hear any background noise, I just decided to put on some rain music. Rain music? How does that work? Rain sounds. That makes more sense. Anyways, we're gonna continue our series of horror stories. Since a friend of mine, his name is Raymond, he said he liked my voice in horror story reading, so I decided, why not? Story number 4. There's a woman hiding behind your door. When I was younger, my mother and I were looking through our old high school yearbooks. Well, as I'm looking through them, this one girl stood out to me, and every page I looked at, she was the first thing drawn to me. Well, anyway, I asked my mother who she is and why I kept seeing her, and she said, "Oh, she committed suicide in her parents' basement." Well, I used to live in an older house, a little over 100 years old. We recently moved to a 10-year-old ranch. In my old house, my bedroom faced the hallway, so I could always see if anyone was coming towards my room. Every night, I saw a shadow dart past my door to the bathroom, and I began having trouble sleeping, as I still do to this day. My parents would say it was just my imagination, so I had a few friends sleep over and they noticed it too. They actually made me shut my door. I started feeling tickles and laughs and things would fall off my shelf. I told my aunt and she said she was talking to a medium, and she said my grandpa was going to see one of the girls this weekend, being me or my sister. So I was thankful to hear it was my grandpa, only it wasn't. We had one day left in our old house before we were moving into the new. So a friend of the family got a medium from Ohio to check out our house. This woman obviously knows nothing about us. She's telling all these stories about what she's seeing, but I was barely paying attention because I wanted to hear her say my grandpa was upstairs, and as we're talking upstairs towards my room, walking upstairs, I remember her saying, "I don't sense anyone here. Oh wait, there's a woman hiding behind your door." She said, "There's only one spirit up here. Her name's Linda." I asked what Linda looked like, and she said long black hair and that she was pretty. She also said Linda didn't let any other spirit up here because she was very protective over me. Apparently Linda has dealt with experiences I have, being depression and mental illness. Richard! And was very protective over me and said she was sad to see me leave. So a month later, me and my mom were driving around a town called Ruthven, which I don't know the state. And we were dropping my sister off at a friend's place, and the haunted house of Ruthven was brought up. I always heard about this house having many friends living in Ruthven. And my mom was like, "Oh, I know the girl who used to live in there." And a friend in the car said, "Didn't she kill herself?" My mom said yes, in her parents' basement. My mom says her name was Linda. I won't put the last name for respects of Linda, but my heart dropped. The description the medium gave me of Linda in my room looks like Linda in the yearbook. Cue the coincidence. Next story. Their protective spirits. A number of years ago, when I was in my mid-adolescent years, my family and I moved into a new house. It was only one story high with a basement, but it had a nice appearance to it. It looked very cozy and welcoming. It had a small garden at the back with a bit of smaller of a yard at the front. Best of all, it was close to my middle school and right in front of my high school. Overall, it was perfect. We lived there for 3 to 4 years before we moved out. It was in that house that I've learned later on that I was more or less sensitive to everything around me. It would explain why 95% of the things that occurred there had to do with me in the middle of it all. When we moved in, the house was still pretty small for a 4-member family, so I volunteered to take the room in the basement. It was a bit cold in the beginning, but I liked it. It wasn't even that scary because, you see, the staircase led right up to the front door. At the front door, there was a little area where we could take our shoes off. That area was connected with this staircase that led to the main floor. There was no door to block anything, which was why I wasn't really that scared with the idea that I had easy access to my family upstairs. Once we moved in, that's when everything first began. During my first year, the house was almost peaceful. The only thing I can really remember about that year was my discomfort every time I walked up the stairs to the main floor. I always looked behind me because I either felt like something watched or followed me. There were times that I literally ran up the stairs with the feelings of being chased. Unfortunately, I could not last for a whole year down at the basement, so my parents switched their bedroom with mine when they took note of how cold I was. During my second year, everything went on both sides of the scale. Either really strange things happened or good things that still make me smile to this day. In that year, I think what triggered the whole thing was that I was bullied by my class, by my teacher's back, and that I simply chose the wrong person to be my friend. Traitors. I started to see things in the corner of my eyes, like shadows of some kind. I lost how many times the battery on my cell phone died right after I charged it to 100%, either during the day or the night. I even found a small, almost childlike handprint on my bookshelf, which was covered with dust at the time. Those aren't the strangest of things that happened to me. These are the ones that still make an impression on me to this day. I experienced dreams about death, which never happened before in my entire life. I dreamt of my family's death. I dreamt about me getting murdered. Sometimes I was afraid of going back to bed, so I tried to stay up as late as possible, and if that didn't work, I would have a nightlight on. Yes, a nightlight on. Which was just sad because I was in my mid-adolescence. I could not fall asleep without it being on, because I felt like something was out to get me. There was also a full-body apparition for my brother and I, a man and a woman, for me. I saw a man, and that one and only time, when I watched TV with my little brother in the living room. From the living room, there's always a full view of both our bedrooms, which had always had their doors opened. One time, while I watched TV, I looked over to the bedrooms, and I saw a man in my brother's room. I had the impression that he wore a military uniform, but that was about it. Every other detail was very vivid at that time and wouldn't come to me until later on. It was then that, as if he felt it, he looked over me. I didn't see it, but I felt him send a smile towards my direction. After that, he simply walked through my brother's computer desk and onto the wall that was connected with my bedroom. I was expected to see him enter my bedroom, but he didn't. I didn't find out much later, after we moved out of that house, that my brother also saw the same thing. However, it wasn't his first time when he saw him. There were two other places that he saw him in. One of them was in his bedroom, twice, once with me and once alone. When the whole family woke up for the day, we heard him scream his head off in his room. We ran in asking what was wrong. He cried out that there was a man in his closet. I checked, but there was nobody in there, nor was there anything to make the illusion of a human, much less a man. The other place that he saw the man, was in his dreams, which were filled a lot of the time with the images of the spirits of the house. The other man, which I very much doubt was even human to begin with, appeared once my parents got a garage built in the back of the house. The first time that I saw the man was when I looked outside my window to look up at the stars. I simply glimpsed at the garage door, which was open, and I saw a headless man stand there. I felt nothing but anger from it. Later on, again, I learned from my brother that he saw the same man, headless and angry, in his dreams. I don't really know if to count this one as a full-body apparition, but I will anyways. I saw an old woman in the body-length mirror in my room. I simply looked into the mirror because something caught my eye, and then something happened. The more that I stared at it, the more I noticed my face was completely changed in the glass to fit that of an old woman. That night, I had to put a whole blanket over the mirror via my father's help. I was simply too scared to sleep with it uncovered. There were times that I was touched. Sometimes, when I lay in bed, I'd feel another person lay with me. The only reason why I felt it was because the air on only one side of the bed got really cold. In addition, the being always wrapped his or her arms around me, almost in comfort. I guess it made sense, because during that year I cried myself to sleep a lot at the time, due to the bullying and my heart being broken by my so-called friend. I needed the comfort with me, bottling all my feelings inside, and hiding away in a shell. It's one of my more fond memories of the house, and to tell you the truth, no matter how odd the experience got, I believe that it was the soldier? I don't know why, but whenever I feel the energy, or to think back to it, the first thing that came to my mind was the soldier. The only time that I was touched was when I was at home all alone in the evening. I continuously played Brave, plus the help of my obsession with the computer also had a role with it. So I stayed at home during the evenings when my family went out elsewhere, or somewhere. I always have my bedroom's door closed, because if I didn't, I'd feel some sort of glare sent to my direction from the living room. So while I was surfing the internet, my ear was suddenly folded completely. My hands were either on the keyboard or on the mouse, so it was not me. The moment I grabbed my ear, it unfolded. Probably due to my screams of fright and shock, it never happened again. I heard voices as well from time to time, but only when I returned home from school. They always said, "Welcome home," or "Welcome home, Rose." It makes me smile to this day whenever I think back to those voices. I always smiled back at them, unsure of where they are, and replied, "Thank you." Though there was that one time when I heard yelling at 3 in the morning. On that morning, I woke up for no particular reason. I looked at the time and saw that it was 3 a.m. The party and our neighbors had stopped long ago, and my parents were in bed, and so was my brother, which meant that the house was supposed to be quiet as a mouse. It wasn't. I heard a man and a woman yell downstairs in the basement. I thought that it was my parents, but the more I stayed awake, the more I realized that it couldn't be them, because they don't yell at each other in English. My family are immigrants, so English is our second, third, or fourth language, depending on whom you ask. The next morning, I asked my mom if she and dad talked at all last night about 3 a.m. At about 3 a.m. She looked at me strangely and said they didn't. I never heard the yelling again. By the end of the second year, I did the unthinkable. I was alone in the house in the afternoon, so I took that opportunity to do what I did. I threatened the spirits. Let me give you a bit of background first before you judge me. Not long ago, my brother experienced a man in his closet, and I was really angry at the spirits. I believed that the spirits turned to my brother because I tried to ignore them the best I could, since I started to believe everything happened inside my head thanks to my parents. So I stood there, hands on my hips, and threatened the spirits to leave my brother alone and go after me. Surprisingly, during my third year, nothing bad happened. The same things happened, minus the apparitions, but a bit less frequently, with an addition of a baby and a little girl. I was having health problems during that year, and the bullying was still there, via my ex-friend. And my grandfather passed away. I was emotionally broken. During my fourth year, I decided to do my own investigation. My parents still didn't believe anything I said, so I very much doubted that they'd get a medium or somebody to come and check the house. I was desperate and had to know what was going on. I did two things that are incredibly stupid now that I really think about it. The first thing I did was record voices while I was home alone in the afternoon. I sat in the living room and asked all kinds of questions. Once I listened to the recording dozens of times, I caught only one voice each and every time. My question was, did you guys try to comfort me because of my ex-friend? Yes. The voice that said yes was a clear, child female voice. It freaked me out, but I thank the spirits, anyways, for both talking to me and being there when I needed comfort. That's sweet. The other thing I did was got around and took pictures. I caught nothing until I went to the basement. The picture that I took in my parents' bedroom scares me even to this day. The second that I saw what I thought, I took another picture to make sure that it wasn't the light or anything like that. It was gone. The red glowing eyes that reminded me of blood were gone. I was so scared that I deleted the picture and ran upstairs. This time, I had an idea of what followed me. The best thing I came up with was either an evil entity or a demon. It explained a lot of things that confused or scared me. I don't know why it hadn't attacked me or anything, but I'm just glad whatever it was didn't. Once we moved out of the house, I did a thorough research. At least I did the best that I could. The only thing I found was the house went back to World War I and a record of one family that lived there. A husband, the soldier, wife, and a couple of children with a little girl among them. I found a picture of the man and felt my whole being turn cold. I didn't know why, but I just knew it was the man I saw in my brother's bedroom. I asked my brother to come and check it out. He said that it was the man that he saw in his bedroom and dreams. He went as far as to describe me one other thing, that the man's eyes were brown. The moment he said that, a flashback came out of nowhere to what I saw in his bedroom, except this time there was an additional detail to what I saw. A young man in uniform with a kind expression and brown eyes. I stopped anything related with that house at that point. I pushed the whole thing to the back of my mind, never to be thought of again. The experience was rough, but I learned important things. My brother and I may be sensitives, but there was such thing as the supernatural, and that I should never mess with it again, no matter what. Now that I have shared my story with people, and believe and have experienced what I went through, I can now finally move on. Thank you for taking the time to read this. Of course. Now let me just get to the third point. Story number 3. 5 months of hell. Just before I start the story, I'd like to explain a few things. Since my nan's death and the hardships I faced growing up, I've always felt my nan with me. From about 18 to 19 onwards to present day, she's helped me in little bits here and there. Because of her being with me, I feel sensitive to other spirits around me. I'm not saying I'm a medium and should be almost haunted, but I do sense a lot of things. I don't see spirits in general, but I see them through my mind's eye. It's like a visual representation of what my eyes don't see. If I mention the mind's eye through anything of what I wrote you will understand where it comes from. Please, if you have any questions about this or anything I've wrote, feel free to comment. I will elaborate on anything you want to know. At the age of 23, I moved out of my nan's house. It was a very sad but happy moment for me. I was finally getting on with my life moving forward. As my life changed, so did my 5-year relationship with my partner, which unfortunately ended. The house I moved to was a decent size. You couldn't tell by looking at it from the outside though. It was longer than it was wide. From the door, the hallway led up to the bottom of the stairs, with 2 doors on the left-hand side. The door closest to the front door led to a small front room, and the second door led to a bigger middle room, which was open, combined with the small kitchen. There were 2 doors in the kitchen. The one on the left led to the garden, and the one on the right led to the bathroom. It had 3 bedrooms, and the only toilet was in the bathroom. Really not good. The first day I moved in was amazing. I never felt better. While John, the homeowner, was out, I decided I'd wash all the new cutlery and plates in the sink. While doing so, I heard footsteps in the hallway. I froze for a split second to take in what I heard, and the footsteps carried out onto about halfway up the stairs and stopped. I could feel the hairs on my body stand on end. I felt this sudden feeling of dread and felt really uncomfortable. I shouted, "John!" No answer. I knew there wouldn't be an answer. After all, nobody came in through the front door. Nonetheless, I checked all 3 bedrooms. Nothing. The house was silent, and I was still having this feeling of dread. I carried on with the washing up, trying to forget about it, and half an hour later, John came home. Everything was okay for a while. I had feelings of dread every now and again, but it was tolerable. Nowhere near as much as when I heard the footsteps. Say 2 months later down the line, 2 months later down the line, when the dark nights were drawing in, I was laying in my bed with my new partner. She was due to go home in about 15 minutes as her dad was picking her up. She had work the next day, and it was quicker for her to get to work from her house rather than from mine. She used to stay over the weekends. Let me fix that. She would stay on the weekends or when our days off matched. Anyways, we were lying in my bed, and she looked up and suddenly started shaking. Frozen stiff but shaking, staring fixated at the ceiling. When I asked her what was wrong, it was scaring me a little. She said she saw some kind of smoke appear in the corner of the ceiling, and then a face appeared through the ceiling, staring at her for a few seconds before vanishing. She was white as a sheet. That same feeling of dread came over me, like when I heard the footsteps, and it worried me. This feeling of dread seemed more intense. We decided to go downstairs and wait for her dad in the front room. While there, she just sat quietly until the sound of her dad's horn was heard. While alone, I closed the front door and sat with the TV on. John came about 10 minutes later, and those 10 minutes in the house alone were very tense for me and felt like hours. Thankfully, John being back took my mind off what had happened. I didn't mention anything to him at this point. It wasn't long after that I started to sense something around the house during my days off. I couldn't put my finger on what it was at first, but after about half a day, I picked up feelings of sadness and loneliness. A million miles away from this feeling of dread I usually got, which was a breath of fresh air. On a weekend off from work, I came downstairs to have some breakfast, and though my mind's eye on the floor opposite to where I was, I saw a small, long bench with a young child sitting in the middle, crying with his hands clenched, rubbing his eyes. Then it came to me. This was this feeling of sadness and loneliness I was having. He looked about 4 to 5 years old. That was the start of it all. Every time after that I'd sense him running around the house, standing or sitting down by me when I was playing my Xbox 360, standing by me watching TV, looking at the food I was eating, and just generally following me around the house. I even got used to that it turned CBBS? Oh, yeah. On the front room, and on occasion while I cleaned up or played my 360 upstairs. The feeling of dread was still looming around the house, but then again, it was tolerable. It was faint. I kept that. I could sense this little boy to myself. There was until my partner saw this little figure run past my door, and then run into my room as if running at her, which just made her jolt as if bracing for the impact. That's when I told her that I could sense him around. Before she could tell me how he looked, I quickly asked her if I could tell her instead. Just so what I was seeing in my mind's eye was right, and I wasn't going mad. I've done a lot over the years, and I've been right every time. This little boy was wearing dirty black shoes, gray knee-length socks that were down by his ankles, in a way that looked scruffy, a pair of dirty black shorts, a gray t-shirt, and a gray scruffy cap, and that the boy was very thin. My partner confirmed all of this with a startling stare, and that she said that she felt sorry for him. She asked me if I'd seen anything else in the house. I told her I hadn't, but I get this feeling of dread throughout the whole of the house. She went quiet for a few seconds, and then mentioned that when she was round on the second night of living there, she'd gone for a cigarette by the open kitchen door, which led to the garden. After about a minute, she felt someone grip her shoulder, but when she returned, there was no one there, as we were all in the front room. And while smoking Really, while smoking a cigar, she constantly felt that someone was standing right up to her face. John was also interested in the paranormal, and it wasn't long until me, my partner, and John, and a few of his friends were making a makeshift Ouija board. The letters and numbers were all on separate pieces of the paper, and the words yes or no were at each end of our Ouija board arrangement. We used an overturned glass to put our fingers on. We managed to contact this little boy, and we asked him to spell out his name. The pointer went to no. Then it clicked. He was too young to spell his name, and he didn't know the year he died, either the day or the month. It was a shame. As it turns out, this spirit boy saw me as a big brother and saw my partner as a mother. Through asking him questions, we found that the boy was left to die of starvation. His mother went out one day and didn't come back. It upset us all. I asked the boy if there was anybody he didn't like in the house. I asked this because of the feeling of dread I kept feeling. I wanted to try and understand what this feeling of dread was coming. And I knew it was meal. But that was it. Answer, yes. And I asked more questions. Can you point to the glass where this person is? No. The person you don't like is in this room? No. Then I asked if the person was upstairs. Yes. Is he upstairs now? Yes. Does he scare you? Yes. Then I asked, is there a male upstairs? There's a male upstairs, isn't there? No answer. So I asked the same question in a different way. Is there a nasty man upstairs? Yes, I'd said correct. There was a male presence. Does the nasty man live above the bedrooms? Yes. It clicked for both me and my partner. That face she thought she saw through my bedroom ceiling was this male. It wasn't good. I started to push more questions to understand what was going on and to confirm what I felt was going on. Does this man come out at night? Yes. Do you hide from him? Yes. Is he angry a lot? Yes. He doesn't like me, does he? No. Because of my nan? Yes. This male presence did not like John or my partner either. Does he know we are talking about him? Nothing. I asked him again. Nothing. I'm a little freaked out, so we decided to call it time as our food was cooked. John closed our session, thanking the spirits for our protection and their communication. This male presence became stronger. During the day, the house was filled with more dread. No matter where I went, at nighttime, I kept the door to my room closed, and I could feel this male presence angrily walking about the house, especially walking past my room. I could feel him stopping outside my door and staring at me, as if the door wasn't there, as if he knew exactly where my head was and where I was sitting. This happened every night. At times, the feeling was so bad, I wouldn't come out of my room to eat or drink. Only for the toilet, I would leave the room, and then I'd make sure all the lights were on in the house. From about 7 till I went to bed, some nights, this male would spend the entire night just staring at me through the door. Those were the times I'd have an early night and want to go sleep as fast as possible. When my partner stayed over, she'd go downstairs during the night to use the toilet and find the bathroom and kitchen lights on. All lights would be turned off when John was home and when my partner stayed over. Some nights or times, the kitchen light or the back room light or the front room light would come on. The one time, the kitchen light came on its own as she walked to the light switch to switch it on. Another time, she went downstairs to the toilet and she screamed. I ran downstairs to find her sitting on the bottom step. She told me she opened the door to see a kitchen light flickering on and off with a huge black stripe in the middle. I shot into the middle room, and the light was back on with no black shape. I stayed with her while she went to the toilet, and we stayed awake that night. We were tired and thirsty, but too scared to do anything. The stuff that was happening every other day, this stuff was happening every other day now. On my day off, I'd avoid trying to go downstairs, and unless John was there, I'd get something from the chip shop and eat it on the way home. That way, I could just go straight upstairs. I'd also like to point a good chunk of it all. John was away a lot, sometimes with work, and other times for breaks with a few friends. On top of everything that was going on, at the time I worked in Wolverhampton, but worked in Perry Bar, which isn't far from Birmingham. The days were long. I was up at 5:30 every morning to get to work for 8:30, and I'd get home around 8 to 9. It was important I had my sleep. What happened one morning happened almost every morning after that until I left the house. I woke up about 4:45 a.m. to my door wide open, and with that feeling of dread there, I just got up, closed it, and went back to sleep only to find that my door was wide open again when I woke up to my alarm. Still, I thought nothing of it. That was until I was being woken between 4:30 a.m. to 5:30 a.m. every morning. I had work. One morning, I woke up to someone breathing on my face. I shut up, but there was nothing but the feeling of dread. It was getting to me now. I wasn't sleeping right or living right. I decided to place a pair of my trainers against the door before I went to bed, and my door would still be wide open with a load of pressure and feeling of dread all over me, and I wouldn't be able to go back to sleep. I was getting more tired as the days went on. When I confronted John about all this, he told me that he was shocked. He told me he heard voices coming from the hallway while he's in bed, and there's been knocking on his bedroom door. He thought that it was messing me about, but when he opened the door, my drawer was shut, and there was no way I'd make it back to my room that quick without making a noise. He told me that there was more whispering and knocking on his door when I wasn't there. It wasn't long after this that I eventually moved house again to my aunt's. Everything there was calmer. All that male presence in the house didn't like me at all. I felt that the spirit was unable to approach me mentally, as my Nan was blocking him out. Instead, he was trying to wear me down physically. For that purpose, I'll never know. For what purpose, I'll never know. And in ways, I'm glad I never will. I've never gone back to that house, and I feel sympathetic for that little boy. And that's three stories for tonight. Hope you liked the background music.